Hi and welcome to this week's Family Art Challenge. This week we're going to be looking at a new technique, and it's one that you can actually go out and about on a walk and look for some inspiration. Let me share my screen and I'll tell you all about it. Okay, so this week we're going to be looking for and making designs with different textures, and textures are things you can feel. So fabric has a rough texture and a book has a smooth texture. So we're going to be exploring textures but also making art from them. And I want to show you a kind of art that was very popular when I was younger, and it's called brass rubbings. And what you could do, and we did it from school, you could go into a church and find a brass image, put some paper over it and rub with a pencil or crayon, and the image would come through the paper. And so many people did it. It was so popular that some of the brasses started to get damaged. So you can only do it now in certain places. But I'm going to show you a little bit about it, and then we're going to use the idea to do something different. So this is what we call a brass. Brass is a metal, and long ago in medieval times, when there were castles and knights and lots of princesses and wealthy ladies, if you were very rich and you died, they might make a picture of you out of brass and put it on the floor in a church so that nobody would forget you. And this is a picture of a medieval lady, and she's got her hands together, which is the Christian way to pray. And here you can see that this person has got a black crayon. He's put paper over this brass and he's rubbing it, and as he rubs with the crayon, the design comes through the paper in a really exciting way. It's like uncovering a secret. And here are some different examples of brasses. So this is a knight, and it's a medieval brass. He's got his trusty dog at his feet. He's wearing his armour. You can see his metal shoes, his long sword, his belt, and again, he's got his hands together to show that he's a good Christian. He's praying. And here we have the knight and his lady in a church. And here you can see one on the floor. So here's the lady. She's got angels at the top to symbolise that she's gone to heaven. And you can see that's a floor tile, which would be about this big. So you can see it's a big image. It's on the floor, and it's so that everybody who went in that building would remember this lady. And this is an image of people looking at some brass rubbings. It's a very old image. It's a black and white photo, and I would say that's probably from the 1950s, looking at those boys in their school uniforms. And here you can see a knight and his lady, different knight and his lady, and they've got the dogs at the bottom and another pair there. So that's some really old brass rubbings. But we're not going to go in a church and do brass rubbings. We're going to look for something closer to home. And here you can see that somebody has done rubbings of leaves. So they've collected some leaves, they've got a wax crayon, they've put the leaf under the paper, and as they've rubbed the crayon, their rubbing has come through. And here somebody has found some household objects. So see what you can spot on there. Well, I would say that's probably a coin. Those are paper clips. That, what do you think? Could be a button. That could be a comb, and I'm not sure about the other things, but they have found some good textural things to make their rubbings with. So if you look at the other video, I'll give you some ideas for things you could find to take rubbings of. But when you've done your rubbings, you can, if you want to, display them in a certain way, which is called a sampler. And a sampler is a neat way of displaying different samples of artwork. Let's have a look. So we're going to look at another old piece of art. This is art, again, well, probably from the 16th century, so it's probably a few hundred years after the brass rubbings were made. But at this point, people were making samplers. So this is, you can see it says Alice Lee, the 23rd of November, 1596, so a very long time ago. And she's done this with embroidery, which is sewing. And what she's done is each little square is a different embroidery pattern. And rich girls used to do this because they mostly didn't go to school. So they would do this embroidery, would be part of their education. They would learn to do these very fine designs and make a sampler. So the whole idea of a sampler is it's squares of different designs. And this is, and we're going to look at a more modern sampler, and this is a very famous artist called Kay Fassett. And he, in the old days, I think it used to be that sewing and embroidery and knitting were very much seen as girls' things, but Kay Fassett made it so that anyone could do artwork with fabric and wool. And he's very famous for his designs in knitting, embroidery, patchwork, painting and mosaic. And you can see some of his patchwork in the back there. And this is a Kay Fassett knitting sampler. And again, they've knitted these tiny squares in different patterns, and then they've put them together to make a patchwork, which is really beautiful. So your challenge today, just show you. And this is not art at all. This is from a catalogue, but I always think these look like samplers. So this is a roofing tile catalogue, and they've laid the pictures out. You've got some dark ones, some light ones, some curved ones, and some flat ones, and they've put them in a design, and it looks a little bit like a sampler, as does this, which is a paint effect sampler. So they've taken different colours and different textures and made them into one larger image. So your challenge. The first challenge, the green challenge, is to just make a pattern using rubbings. And then if you like, you could experiment to see how many different textures you can find and what different materials will do. And then if you want a harder challenge, you could cut squares out of your different patterns and arrange them in a sampler so that you get one artwork. We can't wait to see your results. We've had some amazing artwork coming back from our previous family challenges. So we look forward to seeing what you can do with this one this week.